I slow my car to a crawl as I approach my parents' Buckhead driveway, my fingers tightening around the steering wheel. 6 months. It's been 6 months since I last subjected myself to this particular form of torture. The brick colonial looks exactly the same. Immaculate landscaping, pristine shutters, and that overwhelming sense of judgment radiating from every window. Taking a deep breath, I park behind my father's Mercedes and check my reflection in the rearview mirror. Perfect makeup, not a hair out of place. The armor is secure. Inside, the foyer smells of furniture polish and my mother's expensive perfume. I follow the sounds of bustling activity to the dining room, where Eleanor Walker fusses over the placement of sterling silver serving spoons. "Celeste, you're here," she says, glancing up briefly. Not a hug, not even a proper greeting. Just acknowledgement of my existence. "Would you put the water glasses out? Your father's almost done with the brisket." I nod and move toward the china cabinet, taking in the room as I do. Family photos line the walnut sideboard, mostly Preston in various poses of achievement. Preston at Harvard graduation. Preston receiving some finance award. Preston shaking hands with the mayor. There's exactly one photo of me tucked in the corner from high school graduation. Dad appears from the kitchen, carving knife in hand, his face flushed with pride. "Sunday brisket's almost ready," he announces, not directly addressing me. He's wearing his Kiss the Cook apron, a Father's Day gift from Preston years ago. Smells wonderful, I lie. Arthur Walker's brisket is notoriously dry, a family tradition no one dares mention. Mom circles the table a third time, adjusting the napkins. Preston should be here any minute. He texted that he's running a bit late, something about a call with Tokyo. Of course, Preston is allowed to be late. The Golden Boy's time is valuable. As if summoned by his name, the front door swings open and Preston's booming voice fills the house. "Hello, family." He strides into the dining room wearing a tailored navy suit that probably cost more than my first month's rent. Even on Sunday, he dresses like he's heading to a board meeting. Mom's face lights up. There he is. She rushes to hug him while Dad claps him on the shoulder. "Sorry I'm late," Preston says, loosening his tie. "Had to wrap up some details on that Kensington acquisition." Dad beams. "That's my boy. Always closing deals." We settle around the table, Dad at the head, Mom to his right, Preston to his left, and me facing an empty wall. Dad attacks his brisket with the carving knife, while Mom passes dishes with the precision of someone who's hosted 1,000 Sunday dinners. "So, Preston," Dad says, serving him the best cut. "How's life treating Atlanta's financial wunderkind?" Preston laughs, accepting the plate with a nod. "Can't complain. Just closed another round of funding. 8 figures. He takes a bite of brisket, chewing thoughtfully. "Actually, I've been looking at some real estate." Mom perks up. "Oh, where?" West paces. "There's a modern place just listed $5.2 million. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Floating staircase. The works." He gestures with his fork. "Perfect bachelor pad." Dad whistles low. "That's prime territory. I've got a viewing on Tuesday." Preston cuts into his meat. "Should be able to make an offer by the end of the week." Mom and Dad exchange proud glances. I push food around my plate, the dry brisket sticking in my throat. "How about you, Celeste?" Mom asks almost as an afterthought. "How's that little online shop of yours?" I take a sip of water. "Actually, I've been house hunting too." The silence lasts exactly 2 seconds before all 3 of them burst into laughter. "Good one, sis," Preston says, wiping his mouth with a napkin. Dad's face shifts from amusement to concern. "Your little online store is cute, Celeste, but it's a hobby. Time for a real job." "Arthur," Mom murmurs, but there's no real protest in her voice. Preston leans back in his chair, the smug smirk I've known my entire life firmly in place. "Stick to your trinkets, sis. Leave the big moves to the adults." I say nothing, my face carefully blank. In fact, Preston continues, reaching for his wine. "I'm looking at pouring capital into a new e-commerce player, Modern Hearth. That's the future. They're going to crush all the little hobby stores." The memory hits without warning me at 20. Clutching a 5-page business plan I'd spent weeks perfecting, standing nervously in Dad's study. "What do you think?" I'd asked, hope ballooning in my chest. Dad had skimmed it for 30 seconds before patting my head. "Cute, sweetheart." Meanwhile, Preston just landed Goldman Sachs. That night, I'd made a silent vow, never to share my dreams with them again. What followed were years of cold garage nights at 2 a.m., packing boxes myself. The crushing blow of losing my $50,000 life savings to a supplier who disappeared overnight. Working 3 separate jobs to rebuild, while maintaining the fiction that my business was just a cute side project. Back in the present, Mom pushes a store-bought pecan pie toward me. Have some dessert, dear. You're looking thin. I smile the shield I built years ago firmly in place. The smile doesn't reach my eyes, but they never notice. They never do. If they only knew that the perennial house cleared $35 million last year. That the trinkets, Preston mocks, are featured in design magazines and celebrity homes. That my hobby employs 47 people who actually respect me. I should get going, I say, standing up. Work tomorrow. Preston snorts, playing store. Meanwhile, we'll be talking real business. Mom follows me to the door, pressing a foil-wrapped package into my hands. Leftovers, since you probably don't cook much. 2. I accept them with the same practiced smile, say the expected pleasantries, and escape to my car. My hands tremble slightly on the steering wheel as I pull away from their house. For the first time in years, something inside me shifts a clarity I haven't allowed myself before. Enough, I whisper to the empty car. I reach for my phone and dial Reese. How was family dinner? His familiar voice asks. No preamble needed. Preston wants to buy a house on West Paces. $5.2 million. Reese is silent for a moment. And I want it. The words taste like freedom. The house? Yes. And everything else they think I can't have. I can hear his smile through the phone. It's about time. It's time they learned what trinkets can build. I say, ending the call as the road ahead opens up before me. The perennial house headquarters doesn't look like a hobby business. It looks like success. On Monday morning, Reese Thornton stands at the floor-to-ceiling windows of Celeste's downtown Atlanta office, surveying the empire she's built. Modern white furniture contrasts with vibrant accent pieces from their latest collection. Elegant home goods, candles, vases, throw pillows are artfully displayed on floating shelves, each item a silent rebuke to anyone who ever called them trinkets. He turns back to his desk, where quarterly reports tell the real story. Consistent growth, profit margins that would make Preston weep, and projections that point skyward. 8 figures. Not a hobby, an empire. The wall behind Reese's desk showcases what Celeste never showed her family-framed magazine covers, featuring the perennial house products, industry awards, and press clippings. Home Entrepreneur of the Year. 30 Under 30. Retail Disruptors. The Future of Home Goods. The elevator doors slide open, and Celeste walks in, still dressed in the outfit from dinner. Her expression has hardened from the careful neutrality she wore at her parents' table to something sharper, more focused. How bad was it? Reese asks, though he already knows. Preston's buying a house on West Paces. $5.2 million. She drops her purse on a nearby chair. They laughed when I said I was house hunting too. Of course they did. Reese has never met the Walkers, but he's heard enough over the years to despise them. A staffer approaches with fabric swatches, hesitates when she sees Celeste's expression, then continues forward anyway. Sorry to interrupt, but the Milan samples just arrived. I thought you'd want to see them right away. Celeste's demeanor softens. Thank you, Amber. She takes the swatches, runs her fingers over them approvingly. These are perfect for spring. Schedule a meeting with production tomorrow? Amber nods and leaves. The brief interaction speaks volumes respect, not condescension. Trust, not doubt. 5 years, Reese says, returning to their conversation. 5 years we've been building this, and they still think you're playing store. Celeste walks to the windows, looking out at the Atlanta skyline. You know what kills me? Preston mentioned investing in Modern Hearth. Our biggest competitor. Reese winces. That's... exactly. Celeste turns to face him. He's trying to crush my business without even knowing it's mine. Reese remembers when he first met Celeste. He was a jaded consultant. She was a determined woman with a vision. When she offered him the COO position, everyone told him he was crazy to leave his 6-figure salary for a startup. Everyone except Celeste. The house on West Paces, Reese says slowly. You want it. I can afford it. She states this as fact, not boast. Easily. Reese leans against his desk. But what happens when they find out? When Preston realizes his little sister outbid him, Celeste walks to the far wall where their company vision board displays their 5-year plan. Her fingers trace over the projected growth charts, the planned product lines, the international expansion targets. I've spent years protecting their feelings, Reese. I'm done. Reese watches her, noticing the shift. This isn't the hurt daughter from dinner. This is the CEO who built an 8-figure business from nothing. The woman who lost her life savings to a scammer and clawed her way back without complaint. This isn't about revenge. She continues, her voice steady. It's about recognizing my own worth. By hiding my success, I've been enabling their dismissal. You don't owe them anything, Reese reminds her. No, but I owe myself this. She turns, clarity replacing confusion in her eyes. If Preston wants that house as a symbol of success, let him find another symbol. This one's mine. Reese nods, already reaching for his laptop. Let me pull up the listing. Hours later, they're still in the conference room. Coffee cups litter the table. Reese has his sleeves rolled up, tie loosened, as he scrolls through property details. Good news, he announces. It hasn't gone to contract yet. The selling agent is Mary Holbrook we donated to her charity auction last year. I can get us a viewing tomorrow. Celeste studies the architectural renderings on screen modern lines. Walls of glass, floating staircase. Everything Preston described at dinner. The 5.2 million modern on West Paces, she says. Each word deliberate, the one Preston wants. Buy it, all cash. Reese grins, the excitement of battle in his eyes. It's time, Celeste. Let's show them what trinkets can build. They spend another hour planning the details. The purchase will be through a LLC to keep her name off public records. The closing will be expedited. They'll submit paperwork before Preston can make his offer. For a moment, as Reese outlines the strategy, doubt flickers across Celeste's face. This will change everything with my family. Maybe that's overdue, Reese says gently. Celeste nods, the doubt replaced by determination. She signs the preliminary offer letter, officially putting her name, her real worth on paper. Submit it first thing tomorrow, she instructs, standing to leave. Reese watches her go, pride mixing with concern. The Walkers have no idea what's coming, but neither, perhaps, does Celeste. A week later, the realtor's heels click against marble as she leads us through the empty mansion, her voice echoing in spaces that will soon be mine. Reese walks beside me, his whispered commentary making me smile despite the weight of what we're doing. All-cash offer was brilliant, he says, nodding appreciatively at the floating staircase that seems to defy gravity. They accepted within hours. Your brother never stood a chance. I run my fingertips along cool marble countertops in a kitchen that could host a small army. It wasn't even a competition. Preston waits for bank approvals and family connections. I just wrote a check. The morning light streams through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating everything Preston wanted but couldn't have. $5.2 million of modern architecture with views of the Atlanta skyline that take my breath away? Not that I'd ever admit it aloud. The sellers were practically giddy. Reese continues, testing the premium appliances with the curiosity of a child, said they'd never seen an offer come together so fast. No contingencies, no inspection period. I moved toward the enormous windows. The city sprawled before me like something I could reach out and touch. Did they mention other offers? Just one, Reese grins. Some finance guy who needed to secure funding. Preston's face flashes in my mind how he'll look when he discovers someone bought his dream house right from under him. The thought warms me more than it should. We ascend the floating staircase, each step feeling like a victory. The master bedroom spans the entire east wing with windows on 3 sides and a bathroom bigger than my first apartment. This is where you'll sleep, Reese says, his voice softer now. Your kingdom. I stand in the center of the empty room, allowing myself to imagine for the first time my furniture here, my art on these walls, my life, visible and undeniable. You know what would be poetic? Reese leans against the doorframe, eyes gleaming with mischief. A housewarming party, a party? I turn toward him, the idea taking root. Not just any party. The reveal party. He gestures expansively. Invite everyone who matters in Atlanta, including your family. Let them walk through these halls admiring everything before they discover who actually owns it. I picture Eleanor touching the expensive fixtures, Arthur commenting on the craftsmanship, Preston calculating square footage and property values all without knowing. The perfect ambush. That's deliciously evil, I say, a smile spreading across my face. I love it. The next 3 weeks pass in a blur of activity. Interior designers swarm through the house like efficient ants, transforming empty spaces into something uniquely mine. I oversee every decision, the exact shade of gray for the living room walls, the specific texture of rugs beneath bare feet, lighting fixtures that cast the perfect glow. These pieces from your spring collection should be featured prominently. I tell the lead designer, pointing to items from the perennial house that have graced magazine covers. I want them everywhere. She nods, making notes. They'll be conversation pieces, for sure. Between design consultations, I make an obligatory appearance at my parents' house for coffee. Eleanor has been calling more frequently, worried about my absence from family gatherings. As I slip through the kitchen toward the powder room, I overhear Preston's agitated voice from Arthur's study. Some anonymous buyer with cash swooped in and took it. His frustration vibrates through the closed door. The West Pace's house, my house. Gone before I could even get the bank paperwork started. You'll find something better, dear. Eleanor soothes, her perpetual role as Preston's emotional bandage fully engaged. I've had my eye on that property for months, he continues, voice rising. It was perfect. Arthur's deeper tone interjects with typical fatherly authority. I'll call my banker friends. We'll get you priority on the next listing. Something will come up. I slip away unnoticed. Information gathered. Satisfaction warming my chest. They have no idea what's coming. The invitations go out a week later. Heavy cream cardstock in minimalist envelopes. New West Pace's residence. Housewarming. With the date, time, and address. But no host name. Reese and I review the guest list together, ensuring we've included every important connection in Atlanta's business community alongside my unsuspecting family. My phone rings the next day with Eleanor's number. Celeste, did you get one too? She asks immediately after I answer. An invitation to a housewarming on West Pace's? Must be Preston's new colleague or something. I suppress a laugh. Yes, I received one. Looks interesting. Oh, you should come. It'll be good for you to network with Preston's crowd. Her voice carries that familiar tone, the one that suggests I need help connecting with the right people. I'll be there, I assure her, choosing words carefully. You should come too. We've already RSVP'd. Preston thinks it's someone from that tech company that just opened offices downtown. Good chance to make connections. When I hang up, Reese raises an eyebrow. They took the bait? Hook, line, and sinker. Preston thinks it's a networking opportunity. As the night of the party arrives, I stand in my new bedroom, examining my reflection. The black dress cost more than most people's monthly salary, but tonight calls for armor of the highest quality. My hair falls in soft waves, makeup perfect but understated. I look successful, powerful, untouchable. Outside, the house glows with strategic lighting that highlights its modern lines. Inside, caterers arrange exquisite food on elegant platters. Every surface gleams, every detail perfect. Reese arrives first, looking sharp in his tailored suit. He whistles low as he takes in the completed transformation. It's magnificent, he says, accepting a glass of champagne from a passing server. Better than you described. We stand together at the bottom of the floating staircase, sharing a moment of solidarity before the performance begins. He raises his glass in a private toast to the woman who built an empire while they weren't looking. I touch my glass to his, throat tight with emotion I rarely allow myself to feel. Tonight isn't about approval, it's about truth. The doorbell rings, and the first guests arrive, business acquaintances and local influencers who exclaim over the house while trying to figure out who their host might be. I move among them anonymously, letting them assume I'm just another guest. An hour later, I spot them through the crowd, Arthur entering first, followed by Eleanor clutching her designer handbag, and Preston scanning the room with the calculated gaze of someone assessing property values and net worths simultaneously. Whose house do you think this is? Eleanor asks loudly enough for me to overhear as she accepts a glass of champagne. Has to be tech money? Preston replies, running his hand along a marble countertop. Or old Atlanta wealth. Place must have cost a fortune. They wander through the ground floor, commenting on the furnishings, the architecture, the view. I follow at a distance, watching as Eleanor stops before a distinctive vase displayed prominently on a console table. This looks like one of those things from Celeste's website, she says, bending closer to examine it. Preston scoffs, barely glancing at it. Probably a knockoff. Real quality here? The moment has arrived. I slip away, ascending the floating staircase unseen until I reach the top. From this vantage point, I can see my entire party spread below. Reese catches my eye from across the room and raises his glass slightly our signal. He taps his glass with a spoon, the crystal chime cutting through conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, he calls out. I believe our host would like to say a few words. All eyes turn upward, finding me at the top of the staircase. The room falls silent as I stand above them, powerful in my elevation. I spot my family immediately. Arthur's confusion. Eleanor's surprise. Preston's narrowed eyes as he tries to understand why I'm speaking. Welcome, everyone, I begin, my voice steady and clear. My family in particular was always worried about my future. They thought my hobby couldn't possibly pay the bills. So I'm glad they're here to see what that hobby bought. Welcome to my house. Absolute silence follows. In the hush, I hear the distinct sound of Preston's phone clattering to the marble floor. Arthur's face drains of color, while Eleanor's mouth opens and closes without producing sound. Around them, other guests murmur in admiration, raising glasses in my direction. Across the room, Reese beams with undisguised pride. But it's the expressions on my family's faces that I'll remember forever the moment they finally see me standing in my truth. $5.2 million of undeniable success beneath my feet. For the first time in my life, I'm not waiting for their approval. I'm simply showing them who I've always been, and it feels like freedom. The stunned silence that followed my announcement lasted precisely 5 seconds before a nervous laugh erupted from somewhere in the crowd. I remained at the top of the floating staircase, watching the party guests shift uncomfortably as they glanced between my family and me. My mother recovered first, her social training kicking in. Celeste, stop joking. Eleanor's voice carried a forced lightness that fooled no one. Whose house is this, really? I descended 3 steps, maintaining the higher ground. Mine, mother. Every square inch. Arthur pushed through the gathering crowd, his face flushed beneath his silver hair. He grabbed my elbow, pulling me aside while maintaining a strange smile for the benefit of onlookers. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" he hissed, voice low but sharp as a blade. Is this some kind of sick joke? I disengaged my arm from his grip with a subtle twist. No joke, no games, just fact. Behind him, Preston stood frozen, his expression cycling through emotions like a slot machine. Shock, disbelief, and finally, calculation. The wheels were turning behind those eyes, reassessing everything he thought he knew about his little sister. Around us, the party continued its awkward momentum. Servers circulated with champagne. Conversations resumed in hushed tones. The chamber quartet I'd hired played on, their strings filling the uncomfortable silence. $5.2 million, I announced, just loud enough for nearby guests to hear. Paid in cash from my hobby. A woman I recognized from a design magazine approached. Champagne flute extended toward me. Celeste, this place is spectacular. I had no idea the perennial house was doing so well. We featured your autumn collection last issue. Arthur's face drained of color. Eleanor clutched her pearls. Thank you, I replied, accepting the toast. It's been quite a year. Other guests drifted over, offering congratulations, asking questions about my business. With each interaction, my family retreated further into isolation, their decades-old narrative disintegrating in real time. I excused myself from a conversation with a local gallery owner to refresh my drink. The calculated risk had paid off the public revelation, prevented any family attempt to dismiss or minimize my success. Preston appeared beside me at the wine table, his perfect white teeth clenched in a grimace disguised as a smile. He gripped his tumbler of bourbon so tightly I thought it might shatter. "What game are you playing?" he demanded, voice low and aggressive. "There's no way you can afford this place." "What did you do? Get some sugar daddy investor to front the cash?" I sipped my champagne, maintaining eye contact. "The perennial house cleared $35 million in revenue last year, Preston. I bought this house with my money. Cash." The satisfaction of watching his eyes widen was worth every second of the years I'd spent hiding my success. He processed the information, his expression shifting as he recalculated his position. I could almost see the mental spreadsheet adjusting behind his eyes. "Why didn't you come to me for investment advice?" he asked, pivoting to salvage his ego. "I could have helped you structure things more efficiently. Tax advantages, offshore accounts. You never asked about my business." I cut him off. "Not once in all these years. Not a single question about what I was building. Why would I come to you now?" The truth landed like a slap. Preston retreated without another word, making a beeline for Arthur in the corner. They huddled together, their hushed conversation punctuated by frequent glances in my direction. I turned to find Eleanor approaching, her emergency smile firmly in place. The same one she used when Preston crashed the Lexus at 16 or when Dad's racist comments offended dinner guests. "Celeste, darling," she air-kissed near my cheek. "What a lovely surprise. We always knew you were smart with money." The revisionist history had begun already. I sipped my champagne without responding. Arthur joined us, sliding an arm around Eleanor's waist. "Quite the surprising success," he said, emphasizing surprising as if my achievement were some cosmic accident. "Tell us about your revenue model. How did you scale so quickly without institutional investors?" 8 years too late, they wanted answers. 8 years too late, they were interested in my business. "It's a long story," I replied, offering nothing. "We should have a family business dinner soon," Eleanor suggested, her voice honeyed with newfound respect, to discuss opportunities. "Your father has excellent contacts who might be interested in what you're doing." "Perhaps," I said, non-committal. The power shift was palpable. For the first time in my life, they were chasing me. Across the room, Reese caught my eye, raising an eyebrow in silent question. I gave a slight nod to indicate all was proceeding as planned. He moved through the crowd with practiced ease, stepping in when needed to redirect conversations or extract me from awkward encounters. As the evening progressed, I overheard a fragment of conversation between Arthur and Preston near the bar. "Temporary cash flow issues," Arthur muttered. "But if we can secure that bridge financing..." Preston cut him off with a sharp headshake. "The Kensington investment went sideways. I told you it was high risk." I paused by a nearby column, pretending to examine a painting while straining to hear more. "How bad?" Arthur asked, voice tight. "Bad enough," Preston replied. "We need to talk privately, not here." I moved away before they noticed me, processing this new information. The golden boy wasn't so golden after all. For years, I'd assumed Preston's swagger was backed by genuine success. Now, I wasn't so sure. Rather than confront them immediately, I decided to observe. This unexpected vulnerability changed the equation. The knowledge itself was power. Power I hadn't anticipated having tonight. Later, as guests mingled around the custom marble island in the kitchen, I overheard two financial analysts discussing Preston's firm. Heard they lost the Westridge account last month? Major blow, not surprised. Their last 3 investments underperformed significantly. I filed the information away, maintaining my hostess's smile while circulating through the room. When Reese approached with a fresh glass of champagne, his expression told me he'd heard similar whispers. "Interesting party," he murmured, close to my ear. "Your brother's firm isn't doing as well as he projects. Word is they've missed their last 2 quarterly targets by double digits." I accepted the champagne, our fingers brushing in the exchange. "Interesting," I replied quietly. "Let's keep our eyes open." The family that had dismissed my business acumen for years was now facing their own financial reckoning. I hadn't planned for this additional leverage, but as any good entrepreneur knows, sometimes the most valuable opportunities are the ones you didn't expect to find. 3 months of calculated business maneuvers had transformed the perennial house from a thriving company into a market predator. I sat at my executive desk, reviewing the final acquisition reports with Reese. Outside my office windows, Atlanta's skyline gleamed in the afternoon sun, a testament to ambitions realized. "Supply chain acquisition complete," Reese said, sliding another folder across my desk. "That makes 7 of Modern Hearth's key suppliers now under our umbrella." I nodded, taking in the numbers. Modern Hearth had been struggling with delivery times and quality control for weeks. Each strategic supplier acquisition had tightened the noose around their operations without leaving any fingerprints leading back to us. "The market analysts released their quarterly report this morning," I said, passing him my tablet. "They're calling the perennial house the unexpected powerhouse disrupting home goods e-commerce." Reese scrolled through the report, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "And look at this paragraph about Modern Hearth's increasingly erratic business pivots. They're scrambling." On my desk, a notification pinged. The warehouse deal was ready for final approval. Preston had no idea we'd been negotiating behind the scenes to purchase the very building Modern Hearth operated from. One signature, and we'd control their physical distribution center too. "Ready for the boardroom?" Reese asked, gathering his materials. I stood, smoothing my charcoal suit. "Let's finish this." In the sleek conference room overlooking the city, our executive team and lawyers waited. The mood was professional, but charged with anticipation. This wasn't just business. It was the final move in a chess game only Reese and I fully understood. "The bankruptcy purchase agreement is ready for your signature, Ms. Walker," our lead counsel said, sliding the document toward me. "Once filed, you'll own all remaining Modern Hearth assets at approximately 12 cents on the dollar." I signed without hesitation, my signature flowing across the page with the confidence of someone who had been planning this moment for months. "Congratulations," the lawyer said. "You now own your largest competitor." The meeting concluded with handshakes and nods. No celebration, no champagne. This wasn't about pageantry, it was about power. Back in my office, Reese handed me the industry publication that had just hit the newsstands. The headline blazed across the cover: "Modern Hearth Files, Chapter 11, E-commerce Darling's Spectacular Failure." "They're questioning the investment firm's judgment," Reese noted, pointing to a section halfway down the page. Preston's name appears 3 times, not in a flattering context. I skimmed the article, taking in phrases like catastrophic mismanagement and investor confidence shattered. Preston Walker was being raked over the coals by the very financial press that had once celebrated him. "Your brother's firm is taking a major hit on this," Reese said, watching my face for a reaction. I set down the magazine, my expression neutral. "He bet against me with other people's money. He lost. The words hung in the air between us, neither celebratory nor regretful. Just facts. My phone buzzed again, the 7th call from Eleanor today. I silenced it without looking. Over the past week, my mother's attempts to reach me had escalated from occasional to frantic. Text messages popped up on my screen throughout the day, each more desperate than the last. I played the latest voicemail on speaker. "Celeste, please. We need to talk." "It's serious." Reese raised an eyebrow. "They're finally figuring out what happened." "Seems that way." I pocketed my phone. "What do you think? Should I even bother?" He considered the question, leaning against my desk. "You owe them nothing, but hear them out if you want closure." I walked to the window, looking out at the city I'd conquered despite their dismissal. The family that had never believed in me was now scrambling for my attention. The irony wasn't lost on me. Let them come to me, I decided, on my terms, in my house. I scheduled the meeting for Sunday at 5 p.m., exactly the time family dinner had always been served. Symbolic, perhaps, but I was past caring about subtlety. That Sunday, I positioned myself at the top of my floating staircase as the security system announced their arrival. Through the massive windows, I watched them approach Arthur's shoulders, slumped in defeat, Eleanor dabbing at her eyes with a tissue, Preston trailing behind them, eyes fixed on the ground. The contrast to that Sunday dinner months ago couldn't have been more stark. The power had completely reversed. I made no move to come down as they entered my foyer, standing silent and small beneath me. "Come in," I said, my voice carrying in the marble entryway. I turned without waiting for their response and led them into my living room, not offering to take their coats or provide refreshments. I settled into a single chair, leaving them to arrange themselves on the sofa opposite me. The silence stretched between us, thick with unspoken history. I didn't break it. This was their meeting, their request. Let them speak first. Arthur cleared his throat, hands clasped between his knees. "Celeste, we need your help." I said nothing, just raised an eyebrow. "Preston has..." He faltered, looking to Eleanor. My mother jumped in, voice trembling. "Preston has lost everything." "Everything?" I repeated, my tone professional, detached. Arthur nodded, face gray. "Our savings too." "We co-signed on his investment. Our retirement is gone." Eleanor leaned forward, tears spilling freely now. "We need help, Celeste. Alone. Just until we get back on our feet." Preston hadn't spoken a word, hadn't even looked up from the floor. His designer clothes looked rumpled, his hair unwashed. "What was it exactly that you lost everything on?" I asked him directly. He flinched at being addressed, then muttered toward the floor. "A tech startup. An e-commerce brand? You wouldn't get it. It was called Modern Hearth." I smiled. The expression felt like ice on my face. "Modern Hearth," I repeated. The words precise. "Our biggest competitor for the last 6 months. Did you wonder why they filed for bankruptcy last Tuesday? It's because the Perennial Houses, my company, acquired their entire supply chain. You bet against me with our parents' money." "You lost." Arthur's mouth fell open. Eleanor's weeping intensified. "Celeste, please," she cried. "We're family." Preston finally looked up, his face twisted with anger and shame, a flush creeping up his neck. I stood, smoothing my slacks in a single fluid motion. The conversation was over. I walked calmly to my front door and pulled it open wide, letting the afternoon light spill across the marble floor. "Get off my property," I said quietly, and I closed the door on their shocked faces. 3 months later, afternoon sunlight pours through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Celeste's West Paces mansion, casting long golden rectangles across the marble floor. The living room, once a showcase for potential buyers, now feels lived and truly hers. A cashmere throw draped over the modern sectional, art pieces carefully selected for their meaning rather than their price tags, and fresh flowers arranged in a handcrafted vase from her own collection. Celeste leans forward on the sofa, studying fabric swatches spread across the coffee table. Reese sits opposite her, tablet in hand, his casual posture belying the importance of their discussion. The third quarter numbers exceeded projections by 17%. Reese says, sliding the tablet toward her, that Sustainable Housewares line is outselling everything else 2-to-1. Celeste nods, allowing herself a small smile. Not the shield she once wore at family dinners, but something genuine. People respond to authenticity. Who knew? She picks up a luxurious cream-colored fabric sample, running her thumb across its texture. The room feels different than it did during those first weeks after the confrontation. No lingering tension, no sense of victory needed. Just peace. About the expansion, Reese continues, scrolling through a presentation. I found a manufacturer in North Carolina. Family owned for 3 generations, impeccable labor practices, all materials sourced within 500 miles of their facility. Celeste tilts her head, considering. Higher production costs, but lower carbon footprint, plus American-made carries weight with our demographic. Exactly what I was thinking, Reese says. Their professional shorthand flows effortlessly now, built on 3 years of partnership and trust. Did you see the industry award nomination came through? He adds casually, though his eyes betray his excitement. Design Guild's visionary brand category. About time, Celeste says, without the bitterness such recognition would have once triggered. No need to downplay achievements anymore. No reflexive modesty learned at her parents' table. Her phone buzzes against the marble, screen illuminating with a name. Eleanor Walker. The room seems to hold its breath. Reese watches carefully, his expression neutral but alert. Celeste glances at the phone, a brief memory flashing her family's shocked faces as the front door closed. Arthur's stunned disbelief, Eleanor's tears. For a moment, her finger hovers over the screen. 3 months ago, this call would have sent adrenaline rushing through her system. 6 months ago, she might have answered immediately, desperate for any crumb of approval. Without ceremony, she silences the call and turns the phone face down. "Let's use the better fabric for this one," she says, returning to the cream-colored swatch as if the interruption never happened. Reese nods, the gesture containing volumes of understanding and approval. No discussion needed, no justification required. They move through the afternoon, conversation flowing naturally to future plans, a potential pop-up store in Chicago, collaborations with emerging artists, the winter collection's color palette. Not once does either mention the Walkers or Preston's failed investment. Celeste laughs unexpectedly at Reese's dry observation about a competitor's awkward rebranding attempt. The sound bounces off the high ceilings, unfettered and genuine. She moves to the window, observing the manicured grounds as evening approaches. Her reflection appears in the glass shoulders, relaxed. Posture open, eyes clear. This house feels different now. Not a statement. Not revenge, just home. As dusk settles, warm light blooms throughout the rooms, casting a golden glow on the modern angles and clean lines. Celeste and Reese walk their senior designer to the front door after finalizing the spring collection details. "Dinner at 8?" the designer asks. "Marcus is bringing that chef he's been dating. Says we need an unbiased opinion on his risotto." "Wouldn't miss it," Celeste replies, the casual certainty of plans with friends her chosen family feeling more natural than any Sunday dinner ever had. Back inside, she notices her phone on the coffee table, screen lit with notifications of 3 missed calls. Without checking them, she sets the device face down and walks toward the kitchen. She had waited her entire life to say those words. Now she had. She discovered something unexpected. Freedom tastes better than revenge.